Twitter Spaces that Shara and David McDonald were on yesterday that was hosted by Outlier Ventures. So we have a good amount of Futureverse content, but we didn't have any deliveries over the week that I thought would lead to a speaker to talk about something relevant. And from the AMA, we got a lot of information, but we're not at the point where we can have a developer or like someone that's leading the charge on the development of the root network, such as Marco or Joey, who's known as Santi in Discord, or any of the other tech leadership, because they don't have a good grasp of what they're allowed to say or what they're not. So they're just not going to have much they can tell us at this point in time. So we probably are not particularly close to being able to have a developer of the root network on our show, but we are anticipating some deliveries relating to Buzzies, and that being the return of all of the Buzzies that have not yet revealed themselves. And we're also anticipating something in regards to locker rooms with the next Legends. And we're hoping that something on one of those fronts can happen in the near future so that we can have a guest next week. But if that doesn't happen, we'll continue with this format until there is a relevant topic and a relevant guest that we can invite onto our show. So thanks for understanding. And we would appreciate anyone that joins the stage to talk about whatever topics they want. Everything's open. We usually start off the show by talking about the week that was. And in addition to the AMA, another thing that was released yesterday was a customized token-gated Atom garage relating to the goblins. And on the website, what you do is you log in with your wallet. You sign in using your Web3 wallet, and it looks into your wallet to see what tokens you have. And right now, what went live is a goblin one, but you can see on the website that there are plans for other Futureverse related ones that are token gated. And I didn't think that just with what the update was, that it was enough that it would make sense to have someone from Atom Car Club on the show this week. But maybe in the future we'll do that to hear more about their plans in regards to these custom garages.
Did you try to solve the Easter egg?
Yeah, I tried to solve the Easter egg. I wrote some comments in both the Atom Car Club Discord, and I was talking it through on Smokers Chat last night with some of the people in, but I gave up. Do we know if anyone solved it? I didn't see anything about anyone solving it.
Not sure if anybody solved it.
I see some people
are
trying and like writing comments about how they've.
Believins is up here. I know he was working on it.
Oh,
how's it going, Believins?
Have you made any progress?
Hey, how are you doing?
Living the dream.
As usual. We made some progress, but definitely also stuck at the one point. So yeah, we shall see. But usually, maybe we get some more hints.
Should I summarize for people in case they want to know more? So, when you go into the garage, you can see on the top, on the second story out of 2 stories, you can see a place that is like a board with a bunch of posters. There's also a place where you can look at a code. And then on the first floor, there's a couple notes in different parts of the garage that are hard to see unless you go around or jump around, and there's like a code where you can figure out things, but I don't think anyone's figured it out yet.
Yeah, I also try to decipher what's on the bounty board, but and actually like 2 or 3. If you try to decipher what's written on there, it's possible. But I'm not sure if that's actually helping for the riddle. But there's a bounty for Slim Jim and Dark Bard. So if anyone knows about Slim Jim or Dark Bard, please let me know, and we'll end the bounty.
Great opportunity for people to work together and try to solve it. And it's it's a cool little activity, though I had limited success so far.
But I actually think like quickly expanding on the tag that was basically introduced by that demo now, was pretty impressive to me. I just tried it out like an hour ago. Where with this new release you have what you mentioned, token gated garage, which are down to the trade. So you need an ATEM card with a Goblin tech processor. So it's a token gated experience based on trades, not even like a collection. Or you need a Goblin. So it's also a combination of ETH and root token gating, which I think is quite interesting. And then inside you have I'm not sure if they added this earlier also, like the Under the Hood magazines are now combined with the monthly Futureverse newsletter. So you now have like these magazine formats which are across content. And then also with the videos on the top, you can view videos from all different projects also inside there. And also one thing I discovered earlier was if you go on the first floor in the garage, there is a part of ATEM cards, and if you open that, they have an NFT embed marketplace embedded into the garage as an overlay, which I think is also pretty fun. So you can buy directly from inside this Unreal Engine 5 experience, open the marketplace, and buy processors, and they pre-filter by trade. So yeah, it's a pretty sweet experience overall, and demoing tech on the without actually talking much about it.
I'm most intrigued on the ability that they have to token gate on the root network, because we're not yet at the point where I think the public can do that, or it would be very difficult to figure out, at least.
In what way? I mean, like for the public.
Do you think anyone can that's not on the team can token gate into the root network right now? The Block Explorer,
no, I don't think so.
Doesn't seem to be good enough.
Yeah, no.
To do that.
Yeah, I mean, like even
the fact that it can be done and it's displayed, because I tried logging into a wallet that didn't have a Goblin to make sure it works. So it clearly can token gate.
Yeah. But I think like the overall
that's positive.
The tech on the root network, and how to build applications for it, and how to, I don't know, if you were to build your own application and you want to do like a login with FuturePass, which I assume will be possible. I think all of that will be released at some point, but it's not out there yet.
Yeah, so at this point, I wanted to go over some of the highlights of the AMA that we learned yesterday. And then let's get some commentary about people's opinion on that. What do we say? First, I should welcome Bildo to the stage.
Yeah, thank you. I was just going to comment on, I don't know if this garage is linked, but it's somehow connected. Like, I've connected 3 different wallets to the FuturePass, and I've never logged in on like my ledger. And my ledger is the one with the ATEM pass that would have the traits that qualify. And when I logged in to the garage, it immediately connected my ledger. So I don't know if that technology is already kind of reading like
I'm not sure I should be surprised about that. Let's move on to the AMA items. And the list of things that I think would be good talking points. So, one thing that I thought was pretty newsworthy was the concept that there is no plan to encourage FLUF and Party Bear holders to bridge their assets to the root network. And I got this feeling, or listening to the AMA, that Aaron was conveying that the root network is interoperable to the point with other networks, to the point where it's not really like a blockchain that only works in and of itself the way that the Web3 users are currently most familiar with, but it really can interact, or the different parts of the white paper, the different protocols can, including Futureverse, which is, one of the items explained in the white paper. The Futureverse does not only interact with the root network. Futureverse interacts with at least the Ripple blockchain and Ethereum blockchain for now. And the way it works is you can link several wallets across multiple chains to your Futureverse, and thus you don't necessarily need everything to be on the root network or a specific blockchain. It just needs to be in a wallet that is linked to your Futureverse. That means you have access to the wallet and can sign into the wallet and prove that it's your wallet, and then you don't necessarily need to have a wallet on a particular blockchain to participate in numerous types of activities. I thought that was big. A big revelation. Anyone have any opinions on that? Nope. All right,
Yeah,
we'll move up.
Like maybe quickly. I think like that's super dope, and I mean, we knew that it's EVM compatible and substrate, and I think that already I was pretty glad to hear that. Also, one of my questions was asked yesterday on like interaction with different wallets, or like with the wallets we are all used to. And maybe in the future, for everyone who doesn't want to get into the whole wallet thing, setting up seed phrase and everything, I suppose like most of us here have one. But if you want to address millions, we will need other ways as well. And you can already see, like if you go to the Futureverse creation, that there is a login with Google or login with email. So that will be also a possibility, and I assume that we will just get an address for the Futureverse and can interact like anyone else. And it's like the onboarding process is super seamless there. And then connecting different wallets. I think even in some comment some weeks ago, months ago, someone said, can we link Solana as well? And I think Aaron said something like it's in the backlog, so it's not being worked on, but it's something that could be there. And so I think like that's pretty dope if you can put them together. I think the details have to be clarified. Like let's say you have an asset on ETH, like a FLUF, and you want to list it. You probably can't list it on the root network, because then you need to bridge and like the details there, and that's just my assumption right now. The details have to be clarified on how this works, this interoperability. But in general, I'm pretty stoked that like the setup sounds really, really good.
Yeah. Personally, for me, when I read the white paper when it was first released, at this point, it's been 7-8 months or so, I think. And I was like, well, this is describing things that don't currently exist on the market, like a lot of them. And like, how like, is this going to work? Can they really do this? And if so, what is the time frame that it will take to do this, given that there's several components of the white paper that contain technology that either doesn't exist or hasn't been on the market, at least, or at least, and more of the items maybe had been on the market but have not been adopted in any capacity by like a large number of people. So yesterday was the first time where I kind of felt, oh, seems like they've made some progress towards making this a reality. Because in the months that passed, I had continuously had this thought in my head, like, they can't really, like, they're probably not releasing the root network because it's probably not close to being done in terms of everything working and audited and tested and make sure it doesn't break and connect all these components that have never been connected before. It really seemed like a very, very heavy lift, and it still does. But we got a report that outlined some key facts about where they are that we had not gotten before, and it's starting to feel a lot more real to me. When before it was really conceptual, and I still am questioning, but I was questioning more so, is this really doable on any type of reasonable time scale? And it seems like they're in the auditing process and hoping that a lot of these protocols that are explained in the white paper can go live maybe next month, maybe? They didn't give any dates for the most part, but I don't know. Another interesting component is have the marketplace and a decentralized exchange, sometimes referred to as a DEX, built into the runtime of the network, meaning that it's part of the code to the network as opposed to running on a smart contract on the network, which I'm not the most technical expert on blockchains, but I think overall what we would expect is an easier user experience and easier operations from that. I don't know exactly when it's going to be done, but hopefully soonish, I would say. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think like the key here is on the part of exchanges and like plural exchanges. So one is of course like the DEX.
Centralized exchanges too.
Yeah, exactly.
And another comment was that audits as required by centralized exchanges are still in process and not completed yet. So I don't think we should be expecting anything in the next few weeks, but maybe the audits come back and we're ready to go sometime in the next few months, maybe a couple months, I don't know.
Yeah, let's hope so. I think like we will get a continuous rollout on like with the 9th of May, maybe the first ones, but probably not yet tradable because there's not much liquidity yet. And that's also like one of the questions they definitely wanted to avoid answering or out of regulatory reasons when it's going to be tradable. But I would hope that we will get some way of, even if it's just a decentralized one in May, and then more exchanges lined up and that people can buy it. And I hope they have a proper, and I think like that's coming to have like several exchanges where you can buy it.
Yeah, I think what we can expect for May 9th is nothing more than just being able to see the root on a website in your wallet. I don't even know that. Oh, we'll probably be able to see it on the Block Explorer too, but maybe not. Probably, but it's really not going to be something you have access to do anything with on May the 9th, because there's not going to be exchanges, whether decentralized or centralized, that you can do anything with. And I don't think the bridging tools will be live by the 9th. That's 7 days from now. So yeah, I wouldn't expect much to happen on May 9th, except for the ability to see, oh, look, I have some root. For anyone that has completed the challenge, which was minting the Next Legends boxer, which is branded in conjunction with the Muhammad Ali brand, which is owned by authentic brands, as well as like run by the estate of Muhammad Ali. So for anyone that minted that, all you have to do is you have to log into your FuturePass account, and which is an easy process. And if you hadn't created one, when you go to the FuturePass website and log in with the wallet that you minted this NFT with, if you did, then it will prompt you to create a FuturePass, which is quite easy to do. It's reading the terms and conditions and checking a box. And then you'll get a pop-up that says that you have claimed the reward. And then in the upcoming months, what we can expect is a challenge or multiple challenges every month, some of which some people will be able to do and other people will not be able to do. So for example, if you do not mint a Muhammad Ali The Next Legends NFT for whatever reason, then you weren't eligible for this month. And we can expect in the future that some challenges will be doable by everyone and anyone and everyone, but some will be only by people that have done certain actions that either secure the root network or test the root network, or in some way interact with the root network or with the FuturePass or with anything that they're building. And one key thing that is very clear to me, what they're doing is they are trying to take a minimal amount of risk in terms of the chance that a governmental agency, whether the SEC or any number of international or other governmental or regulatory agencies, or even private companies or people that want to make sure that they are in compliance with regulations from worldwide entities, they want to make it very, very clear that they are taking many steps to avoid the root token being classified as a security. So not only will they feel safe from the SEC and other regulatory bodies, but on top of that, any big company that wants to look into that as due diligence before deciding if they're okay with, if their lawyer team is okay with a partnership with the Futureverse organization, that they would likely feel comfortable too, given the steps that Futureverse has gone to avoid any notion that they can be, that the root token can be a security. That being said, it is not a black and white concept, and it is not totally safe that that the root token would not be classified as security potentially by any number of entities, because it's a very complex rule in the US, and it's a complex rule in Canada. It's a complex rule in a number of jurisdictions where it's more clear in others. So it's really not a black and white item, but it's rather a facts and circumstances based determination. And Futureverse is trying to take a very conservative approach so that, I mean, they can't take the line that they'll do everything in their power to avoid being a security, because if they do everything, then they can't accomplish what they want to accomplish. But they're taking a conservative path. So they're accomplishing what they want to do in terms of what they want root token, how they want root token to perform, like what functions it can do, and how it can affect the platform that they're building. But whatever they've been able to do to de-risk, they've been doing. I think that was very clear on the call. So they've been skirting away from any language that says assets earn you the token, and instead participation and activities and work earn you the token, which is an important distinction. And on top of that, they have said that they're not going to release the formula for the future score. So they said it's kind of up to the community to, if they want to know how the future score is being computed, they'll have to kind of figure it out. And from the Futureverse's perspective, they'll kind of list some things that would likely affect the score in both positive and negative ways, but they won't reveal the details because they think that that would be a bad fact towards the potential of somebody, whether a governmental agency or lawyers for a company that might want to enter the Web3 space and might in the future consider a partnership with the Futureverse or building on top of the root network. They want as few people as possible to come to a conclusion that the root token is a security. I hope I explained that well, because it's not the easiest concept, and it's a very sensitive concept for the team, and it's definitely something they've had a lot of trouble dealing with. And every big company in Web3 is having trouble dealing with. So it's a tough situation.
Yeah, I'm pretty glad that they put so much effort into this, because I think, we will get more and more cases where tokens were distributed in a false manner. And now with the Ripple case, I'm not sure what's the status there. And in the end, we use XRPL, I'm already talking about Futureverse as we. The Futureverse is they're working with XRPL and using their tech. But of course, with all these SEC talks, where there are still lots of cases ongoing and probably lots of cases incoming. I think it's super good and important to have it this way, and also to phrase it in a way that it's not called distribution, but more a reward for interactive gaming experiences and participating in the network and in the activations. I think that's smart. And also, they mentioned that it's distributed, that you can earn it through playing, through playful experiences over the next couple of years. And I think that's also a smart choice. So in comparison to ApeCoin, for example, where you would get the whole thing, or at least a big chunk in one time.
Based on asset ownership.
Based on per asset, you didn't do anything for it, and you would just receive it. And now, of course, you can stake it. But I'm not sure if staking qualifies already as a full played experience. Probably it will, because you do know something, and then you get the staking rewards. But I'm overall summary, I'm glad they put so much caution there, because in the end, nobody of us here wants to be screwed over once more regulations come in. They can just say, look, we already did all our jobs, so we can just stay and don't have to change anything.
Yeah. Now, of course, I have to explain the downside of it as well, as my attempt to be journalistic in this role, which is as an example, with Ape and ApeCoin, people had an expectation and were delivered. The reality that for every asset, you got a particular amount of a token, which is what a lot of people would want from Futureverse as well. Let's say they bought FLUFs or minted FLUFs and have them. I think there are a big group of people that were like would like to receive the root token for that, and just like an easy process and straightforward process without any lack of transparency. But the team is going a different route by putting a lot of by not being transparent because of the regulatory environment and the associated risks. So whereas a lot of people would want a simple, straightforward, transparent approach to receiving the root token, that's not going to be the approach. The team made it quite clear that they think that they're acting in everybody's interest by taking the steps that they're taking to avoid the possibility or to reduce the possibility of the root token being considered a security by any number of entities or people. And due to this, we're not going to get a straight answer as to the formula for how the root token is being earned. And it is quite possible that some people with lots of assets might, at the end of the day, feel not content with the amount of root token they end up with. And we can't really know how that will play out as of now because they're not going to tell us. So it is possible that at a later point in time, there's some information that we can sleuth together as a community to feel comfortable with it. But I know a lot of people are probably not feeling comfortable with it at all. And on top of that, there are a lot of different interests that the team and people can have and be thinking about, and not every interest is perfectly aligned with one another. So there is, a very real possibility that, the assets that were once worth a lot of money and maybe, the Genesis types of assets or NFTs that people paid a lot for, maybe we'll not receive the amount of future token distribution that would be close to equal to the amount that they were once paid for or worth. I mean, we don't know. I think in the beginning, when the Root Network was announced, there were a lot of people that came up to conclusions that they thought that the price of FLUFs was cheap because they would receive this root token for owning a FLUF, and thus buying FLUFs was like, people might say that buying FLUFs was, a good idea, or they were well valued because of the root token that comes with them. But now the team is not commenting at all in any direction about any of that. And in the past, some team members might have quoted some content creators that came up with that opinion. And right now, the team is not doing any type of acknowledgement about assets, Genesis assets or other assets in the ecosystem directly earning a root token. And so that's something that some people might feel is something they're not happy about. Let's welcome AC Grizzles to the stage. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. I just want to piggyback on what you just laid out, and I pretty much agree with everything you said. The issue about regulations is what makes me very concerned, because there is a natural tension there to where they can't be seen as promoting or selling securities, so they can't have the NFT look like that. And from my point of view, based on what I read in the chat and based on my own experience, back when I minted these things, or when I bought these things, I thought I was buying securities. Now, I'm not saying no one told me that. This is my assumption, right? This is just what I was wrong about. But people thought they were buying one thing, that they're going to be able to make money down the line. But as what we've seen in the past year, the team has had to run the opposite way for any of that type of that talk. So no one can accuse them of doing any of that stuff. And it's fair. Like we're mad about when marketing, but from their point of view, it makes perfect sense why they can't touch that stuff. And so, but at the same time, they can't explicitly say that, because as soon as they say that, everyone realizes that the game changed, and that what I thought I had isn't that anymore. And so they're kind of in a rock and a hard place where they can't say anything. They can't confirm nor deny. And at this point, I don't see a way through or past that tension.
I hear you. Another thing that I meant to mention is I had talked about how the team has clearly made a decision that they're not comfortable saying the amount of root token or anything regarding the ability to claim root tokens because you own an asset. But there is, a further possibility, depending on how conservative they feel like they need to be versus how aggressive they're willing to be, on coming to a place where their lawyers want them to make a decision that says, not only do you not have to talk about not only do you have to avoid talking about giving root token to owners of certain assets, but you need to actually make that allocation such that you're not overly giving the root token to people because they own an asset. And we're just not going to be able to know where the team is at in terms of, number one, their desire to be conservative in this regard to avoid potential problems, and number two, where the team wants to go in terms of rewarding who. So I think it's quite reasonable to believe that the team wants to reward their original community, but there are a lot of other people that they might be pressured to reward as well, including companies that are funding a lot of the expenses and doing seed rounds with the Futureverse. So, and the fact that they can't really tell us leaves open a lot of room for interpretation and then room for speculation and guessing, which means that everyone's going to have a different opinion on what the team wants to accomplish and what the team is willing and not willing to do. And everyone's going to come to a different conclusion. And that's just kind of the way it's got to be because of the regulatory environment. And there's really no way around it. So it is annoying and it's unfortunate, but it is the world and the parameters that we all exist under, where we have these assets that are not securities and have never been securities. And I think a lot of us were intrigued by Futureverse because they're building something a lot more with a lot more depth than other NFT projects that have like a JPEG and some parties and airdrops of more JPEGs but nothing really of substance, and no team of 300 people that are actively building the types of tools that can move the industry forward. So a lot of people in Futureverse that invested into Futureverse did so with I'm not buying a JPEG, I'm buying into this company that is building all these cool things that might be a big part of the future. But we, as AC Grizzle said, we don't actually have the equity, so we're really relying on the team to provide things, or relying on ourselves to build things with the tools they give us. So let's hear from Believins, who has his hand up.
Yeah, I think I agree with your points. It's going to be interesting to see how all of that evolves. How long-term holders and big holders compare to new holders, as the formula on the future score will incorporate rarity, but also they said like not only rarity but also the length of how long you held. I assume that it won't be that easy to be like, okay, like A plus B plus C is my future score, but a more complex one that might lead to frustration. But at the same time, I would hope that the formula is made in a way so that holders which were there from the beginning actually feel a difference from the ones who just bought or will buy. So yeah, I think like that's important that they feel it, and also for the interactive experiences or games that will then lead to root as reward. I also hope that it incorporates the ones which maybe have just one asset in comparison to the ones who have hundreds of assets, so that everyone can participate without grinding every single day 24/7. So I think like there are lots of things to watch out for, but I'm optimistic and looking forward to find out how this all works. Just want to quickly say also goodbye. It's like 1:45 a.m. in the morning here, and I am falling asleep slowly. So yeah, thank you for hosting the space.
Thank you for joining us at such a late hour.
Thanks for coming, Believins.
Appreciate you. Let's hear from Savon, who has recently joined the stage.
Great day, great evening. What's up, everybody? Really, just wanted to echo that the whole idea of the reward system being based on proof of work, I think is one of the most sound choices that they could have made, given the options and, what are their stated intentions as far as looking after some of the community as a whole, that being early people, folks who've joined more recently. And if we think about a lot of these other chains that have launched over the last couple of years and how they've done their airdrops, in a lot of ways, they are based off of proof of work as well. So things such as, okay, if you have traded on a platform, if you have provided liquidity to the platform, this, that, and the third, they have qualification criteria based on activity. And so far, most of those major chains, things like the Arbitrums, the Optimisms, they've yet to get any sort of notice for violating any securities laws and how they've done their drops. And generally speaking, those protocols are pretty, well-funded teams, but they can be pretty sizable as well. And I say all that to communicate that they generally have pretty good access to lawyers. And when you, like what Futureverse is doing or are about to launch an entire network, you don't want that to be ruined just because you violated some securities laws. So factoring in that even in this situation with Futureverse, as it's been laid out to us, that it's not going to be some lump sum upfront claim or drop, I think further helps their case. to distance it a bit from what has been done in the past as well. So personally, I am a lot less concerned about them figuring out a solid way to handle the proof of work, participate to get reward aspect of it. And even given the investors, I think there's a simple scenario, obviously not as simple as I'm laying it out here, but one where these investors who want access to the token, they just buy the NFT assets if they know that that's going to be how they get them claimed. Now, they would potentially have a lot more information than we do, or they would definitely have more information than we do. So I'm not sure legally what they would be allowed to invest in, and that would get into the bounds of insider information or not. But ultimately, I think it's just me personally, a lot more of the frustration has stemmed from some of the delays on the technical side. And yesterday, I don't think I phrased my question as well as I could have to Aaron, but I was effectively getting at, sure, no one is saying they have not shipped things, because they have, but more so getting to a point where they say we're going to hit the pause button on adding anything new or any changes to a particular aspect of the product, or things like the paper being done, which is based on a lot of the dynamics that they've whipped up for how things will work in the Third Kingdom, and pushing those things ahead on a timely manner. Because one thing I also thought about is, if there are these other partners that are ready or want or interested in doing activations using this technology, it would be odd, or rather, if they had plans, concrete plans, you would think that the team would have to respect certain timelines for those companies to be able to execute on their plans. So the fact that they continue to move some of these things, that makes me more so curious about how concrete some of these partnerships and plans actually are, if they can be so flexible as to continually be moved or adjusted. So that is something I'm more interested in getting clarity and information on as a whole. But just wanted to share that 2 cents. That's all I got.
Yeah. The reality is, there's a lot of information that, as the public and we members of the public are not privy to. And in that situation, lots of people will come to a variety of different conclusions. And as the host of the show, all I aim to do is, outline some of the different ranges of conclusions that people may come to. Let's move on to the next point that was part of the AMA that I found to be interesting, which was the path towards making the root network a viable option for developers to choose to build on, and the path towards that. So Alex kind of asked Aaron relatively straightforwardly, do you consider the root network to be an alpha, beta? What's the status of it? And Aaron's response was alpha right now, and then when staking becomes available of root, that is when I will consider it being in beta. And he described the path towards getting developers to build on the root, that firstly, they need to complete some audits before they can move forward with the next step. So the next step, well, one of the steps that they're currently working on is they're working with specific partners on developing specific things that are not, again, not public information. So I don't know how much we can do with that. But then the next step would be to, once audits are done, the blockchain information will be made public. So any number of developers that are interested can look into the code and the programmings and maybe decide they want to do something or not. There's also going to be an accelerator program run in conjunction with Outlier Ventures, which will allow for companies to apply for grants or community incentives to build particular products on the Root network by applying through this accelerator. And I guess we'll go from there, right? So it's a little bit farther behind, I think, than something like Sui, and of course way farther behind than protocols that are already active like Arbitrum or Optimism. But those protocols got a lot of attention, and Aptos as well. They get a lot of attention from the developer community, and as of right now, it seems to me that the developer community at large is not very much aware of the Root network. There isn't even like a Discord called the Root network where they can go and ask questions. There isn't really any tooling available for finding more information about the Root network. There's just a website and a Twitter account, and there was an AMA, but there's not like a consistent way for developers that are interested in building or learning about this blockchain or this protocol to learn more about it or to gather. So I'm looking forward to a future where that becomes more concrete and readily available, but I don't think we're particularly close to being there yet. I want to welcome MetaBlocks to the stage. How are you today? Sir MetaBlocks, are you there? Well, I guess I should keep talking then, huh? But that was kind of the end of that bullet point about the future of developers working on top of the Root network and building items in the Root network. So, to the extent that anyone is building on the Root network today, it is not public information. And people that are not working with the team right now are not working on the Root network, and they don't have a realistic, if there's like a game or an application that is deciding whether or not to build on one network or the other, they're not considering the Root network. And for companies that have applications that run across many networks, they're probably also not looking at the Root network as something that they need to build something on unless they are working closely with the team. And if they are working closely with the team, it's behind NDAs where neither side is allowed to say that that's happening. Any comments? I really didn't want this to be a monologue.
I mean, I'm curious to go back a little bit. I mean, I think a lot more speculation or a lot of what we talked about is kind of unknown until we see that first future score posted. And then I feel like maybe we can start to decipher a little bit more. But even then, like, that determines how much Root we get, but that doesn't necessarily mean you would be getting Root for every challenge. So there may be, like TNL is very specific to TNL. So there may be some challenges for fluffs or for party bearers or for thingies or for any of the collections. But then how you interact with those challenges would be based on your future score of your overall holdings. So it'll be really interesting. I think it'll be damn near impossible to kind of really figure out everything, but I think the future score and seeing that post first will be a big step forward in learning a lot more what all goes into it.
We also will count on Tyvo to tell us how to calculate the future score. Blocks, you had your hand up for a second.
Hey, y'all, Max.
How are you?
Good, mate. Good. I was just having a listen for, with AC Grizzle and yourself talking about, the difference that we've seen, and just thinking, like, trying to zoom out and think about what we saw in the first version of the white paper with regards to the 10% allocation, and we knew that X amount, we didn't know what that amount would be upfront, and all our guesses were based on speculation, and the rest would be a reverse claim. And I think most people would have expected that would have been over at least a 2-year period, would have been my guess. And then just having a look at the updated version, taking all the points that everyone's talked about with regulatory and everything else that we know, and we see the 10%'s gone to 20. Okay, so we know that pie's gotten bigger, but we don't know what that actually includes as a whole. And to Bildo's point, I really think it comes down to, if you are long-term and there for the duration of that time, then that portion is allocated to the community. And I think that's like an important point from a point of view of, knowing that amount is going to the community in whatever way it does. If we look at the future score getting released, then as Bildo was saying, there will be different challenges that don't include all assets at all times, and it won't be a linear release. But I do think there will be a particular point in time early, within the first month or two, where everyone has their future score, and they need to, release some amount of liquidity of root. And, if your future score is 1,000 and you get X amount of root, and the total amount of root that was released, which is obviously public, you can at least see, I got 1% of that drop. And I think that we'll be able to start seeing those type of things. And it's I don't think it's definitely not a short term. There'll obviously be the short term game in my mind will be people speculating on which assets are worth what. And that will obviously drive the short term game. But I think the long term game is actually, the pie went from 10 to 20. No one likes delays, but where, I said yesterday when we're in voice chat in Discord, do we think the actual overall pie has gotten smaller or larger? Well, that comes down to if you trust the team, and if you trust the team, and with what Aaron's, talking about doing behind the scenes, you would think that things are getting bigger. So, there's a lot of unknowns, and I think it just comes back to obviously individuals' time frame and your trust of the team to deliver.
Yeah, definitely trust is a very key word, because to the extent that somebody has a lot of trust for the team versus another person that doesn't trust the team very much at all, they're going to come to extremely different conclusions in the absence of information that the team just realistically isn't going to provide because of regulatory concerns and possibly for other reasons as well.
Yeah, and there's always too, like, anyone who's been involved in ventures over a long period of time knows that there's always, whatever you want to call it, pivots, problems, things that arise that you have to work through. And, you always have to come back to going, well, okay, if you put yourself in Aaron's shoes, like, okay, what is the direction that you need to do, and how is that being communicated, and what can be communicated? And I think, whether it's, with regulations and governance in place, there's, you have to think about it from a point of view of going, well, okay, how, like, what pieces of communication are being delivered that are then affecting trust? And then that's up for them to obviously recognise what's happening, and then decide whether they have a move that they can do, or if their hands are tied and they can't. And that again comes back to being able to know that, yeah, okay, trust might be stretched, but if the core of what they're looking to do is going to reward the community, then overall, I think Kiwiana mentioned it yesterday. I think that that 2-year mark is something that I think was, if that was talked about at 3 or 4, then that's a bit different game. But I think if people are involved in wanting to see the root network grow, that a couple of year expectation from here to see the sort of fruition of what's been built over the last few years is a realistic time frame.
Yeah, I just posted 2 items to the top of our space, one of which is the recording of the AMA, which is about 90 minutes, in case anyone wants to listen. Somnium had already posted very detailed notes taken by our incredibly helpful community member who provides notes for all the big events over a very long time now. So NFT bro, I would appreciate if everyone can give some emojis of thanks for everything he does in terms of taking notes for the community. He does a lot of other things as well, but especially for taking notes. This is extremely helpful to people across the whole community. So those are pinned to the top, and it's 6 full pages of very intense notes that I went through in quite detail in my preparation for the show. And so if you want to listen to the audio version, that's also pinned to the top. And then the first challenge, which is time gated and will end on the 9th of May, potentially in New Zealand time. So don't leave it to the last minute, which is to log into your account that minted the Next Legends NFTs, and to the extent that you miss the deadline, then you will not be able to claim the 100 root. So please make sure to claim the 100 root in plenty of time, and all that it takes to claim that is to log in to your Futureverse account, which the link is at the end of that tweet that I pinned. Log into your Futureverse account with a wallet that you minted the Next Legends NFT with, and I want to be clear that it's minted, so if you purchased it afterwards, or even if you purchased it afterwards but you didn't mint, that wallet is not eligible. And to the extent that you minted but then sold, that wallet is eligible. So it's really about having minted it. Then you can claim 100 root per token, and it will show as a pop-up that's very clear to see. If that wallet has not yet created a Futureverse, the first thing that will come up for you when you sign into that wallet is terms and conditions that you need to accept to create your Futureverse. It is very easy, and it is working quite well, even if it didn't work super well when it was first released. But now it is working well, and it's quite an easy process. Do not forget to do it. Thank you. Any other comments? Tybo, have we heard from you since you joined the stage?
You would have known that. No, I haven't.
Well, welcome.
Can you hear me? It's all good?
Welcome.
Cool. I think another thing to think about when it comes to trust is like, who else is involved? Just 1 second.
Do we trust Tybo's child to be quiet when he wants to talk to the Twitter Spaces?
No, I don't trust him.
Before I continue, a quick word from our sponsors that make the show possible.
Introducing Fraz Cola, the world's premier beer-flavored beverage.
It's Fraz, delicious, highly nutritious with a top-secret recipe that's so delicious.
Nothing beats the buzz of a cool Fraz Cola. What are you waiting for?
We're getting Fraz to the NAS!
Consume at your own risk. Symptoms may include and death.
Anyway, I was just gonna say the trust of the team. Who else is having to trust him? 10T, they vetted the team for 6 months. The whole Futureverse company with 300 employees, that they have to, trust that they got a job tomorrow. Like, I just think you got to have your perspective broadened beyond, I guess, what you believe requires trust, because like there's a lot of money on the line for not just us but investors as well. So I guess it's just something to think about, really. It's not just, I guess people are concerned about the NFTs being worth something. Maybe that's what the trust is. I'm not sure. What do you think the trust issues are in regards to the fee?
I will point out that there are a lot of scenarios where a lot of big companies put their trust in a particular entity, and then that entity totally fucks everybody over. Not talking at you, Sam Bankman fraud, but it's something that happens a lot, or at least it happens. Maybe it doesn't happen a lot, but when it does happen, it's big news. So there are a lot of situations where a lot of big named entities and people believe in something, and then that something doesn't work out. I'm not saying that Futureverse is that. I'm just saying it is a good tool to look at all of the companies and all of the people that have signed on to Futureverse. Is a very impressive list. And of course, all the employees that are trusting the Futureverse too. But, there are a lot of companies, there are a lot of employees of FTX and a lot of investors that invested into FTX, that a lot of people might have made the decision based on all of that FTX was totally safe, and that didn't turn out well for them. So that's just a counterclaim, but it is true, and it is a good point. There are a lot of people and a lot of big companies that are signed up to this, that believe in the vision that the Futureverse is talking about, and believe that the Futureverse can accomplish it. And I know that Ripple and other companies must have done a lot of due diligence about the Root network or about other aspects of the Futureverse, and just decide that they're comfortable with it. Metablocks.
Yeah, no, good points, Matt. So I just think like when just take listening to the points and what where people's discussions are in Discord, and when we talk about like that trust and transparency, like it's really that transparency, and then what bridges out off transparency is expectations, and there's 40 people in the space right now. I can guarantee you everyone has got different expectations, and then you take that out to a larger size of active community members, and everyone's going to have different levels of expectations of what things will happen and how they'll happen. I don't know, I just tried to zoom out to look at the discussion on the white paper and look what it was before versus after, and personally I don't think it will change too much at all. It's just that the wording had to change to keep everyone happy, and ultimately those that are holding the assets will get rewarded. But of course, where if we think about the period from when they started to now, you're always going to get to a point of highest level of least transparency or lowest level of trust prior to starting to see things delivered. And I think Aaron's still putting himself out there to hop on Twitter Space yesterday and clearly step out at least a few deliverables over the next 4 weeks. So every time that he doesn't deliver, then everyone's within their right to have a lesser amount of trust or accept those delays for whatever that reason may be. But I just think every individual is on their own journey and has their own right to their own thoughts and views, and that's totally normal. We're never going to come together in a community group of any number and everyone agrees. So I just think it's always good to hear everyone's views and thoughts. And I'd probably ask the question and say, we could argue about how well we think things are listened to from a community level, but I can tell you there's plenty of other organisations where you wouldn't get the access to even have those thoughts listened to in the first place. So, I think it does come down to gut instinct and making your own decisions on what's best.
Thank you. And we would love to hear the thoughts of everybody, whether you think your opinions are to the left of most people, to the right of most people, or somewhere in the middle. It's great to hear a lot of different perspectives on our show about the trust issue and about any other number of issues that we're discussing or that we might discuss.
There's bonus root as well for speaking on stage too.
Yes, bonus poke root. Somnium's in charge of the bonus root POAP activation that we're not doing.
The not snapshot just got taken.
We're calling it a Som shot. Which, by the way, doesn't exist.
Anyway, we can't promise you that if you get on stage and participate in the conversation, that you will get root.
Maybe loot. There might be a loot drop. Som's launching the loot network.
He's not wrong.
We make no promises or guarantees.
No credits. How's it going?
Hey team, good discussion. I only had one comment to say right now, mainly around communication. So what I do in real life is kind of visual communications, and I deal constantly with people trying to communicate. And I know I'm not the only one to think this, but I kind of think that the communication is what's let everybody down. And sometimes there's reasons like, NDAs or whatever. But even saying that is a communication in itself, and I think people can often get really busy or dismissive of communication as a something super important, and it just never happens, and it gets worse, and then it gets so bad. Like there's one project I'm involved in where the communications got so bad now that they just refuse to hold AMAs or speak with us at all, because they've kind of dug their own hole so deep that they don't want to talk to anyone. So I just feel like if the team were able to, it's all very well, merging 11 companies and stuff, but if they haven't thought of and banked on communication as so important for the future of the project, that they're going to end up with more and more issues like this rather than fewer issues. So it was just my 2 cents on communication.
I was just going to say, I 100% agree. No credits. It's, I think if we talk about, if you want to talk about the frustrating aspect is I've had, involvement in companies and projects over a long period of time where, things I was saying from March last year was where I knew it was going to go to. I've been involved with technologies that take a long time to develop, and you see, you need to see these things ahead of time, and most times projects and companies, and especially those that aren't experienced in dealing with sort of a 24/7 feedback loop, they're only going to address these issues after they raise. And I just think that I just think that there's so much time is spent texting to try to put out words in Discord text chat to try to put out fires after they happen, and I think ultimately everyone has different ways to lead and communicate, but being proactive is always the best way to do it, and having an open platform. And I just think that the time return, yes, these guys are extremely busy in whatever they're doing, but I still think that the value that the community provides to the overall project, and Max was discussing earlier about how we're all viewed in that, and yes, it's a much bigger thing now, and what is our role in that as the holders of the NFT. But I think allocating the time to Discord voice chat across, being mindful of holders across time zones, and it doesn't matter if there's they're not alpha hunting, it's just literally hey, here's the times, twice a week, half an hour max, and you're looking at a 40 to 50 hour commitment per year. And I think if any project is doing that in the space, from a team level, providing that level of openness, I think they're willing to be there regardless of whether there's delays and what's happening, and being able to answer those hard questions, and for the community to know that there's going to be times where there's questions and things that they can't answer with what's going on behind the scenes. But as I said to Alex yesterday in Discord, that's all you have to do is those one-on-ones are great, but those conversations, that Alex collects that feedback, but it's not just the feedback from those one-on-ones, it's the sentiment that is passed through those conversations, and you won't get that getting those notes distilled back from Alex to the community. So that's where I think, having those open forums where people who aren't comfortable to speak can go into a Discord chat with 50 or 60 people and listen in, or listen to the recording, and everyone is covered. You've covered all your bases, and I think if any project does that, then they've covered themselves. It doesn't guarantee success, but you've at least shown the doors open to communications.
Let's welcome Kona Road to the chat.
Hey everyone, I just joined in a little bit ago, but picked up on the theme here, and the communications, to me, it doesn't feel like it needs to be that sophisticated or even that much more, but I think the biggest issue to me is just follow-up. Like, when they say something and the plan changes, just tell us at some point that there was a change as opposed to letting it go by. Whether you're talking about, Bazookas fit it all in by Q4, or the ETH League was supposed to be in Q4 last year, but clearly at some point they knew that those things weren't going to happen on that timeline, and it waits till afterward when everyone's asking about it every time they come into Discord or afterward, and then it's like, well, you have to be patient, these things take time. It's like, well, you indicated a timeline, so just follow up on the things you've talked about. To me, that's the most frustrating thing.
Text to animate leak after the Discord, after the AMA yesterday. We're still waiting for that one, just quietly.
Yeah, for me, I felt like the whole Red Packet February thing was like a bit of a debacle, and it seems to me, or at least from my perspective, that they didn't really have much intention, or something major happened. But I have to believe it was quite a bit before February 28th when they announced that wasn't going to be happening. I think we all knew it wasn't going to happen because we knew TNL was happening before Red Packets. So that, for me, was something that hurt trust. And then I feel like they started to deliver more with, amulets were showing up en route, then we were able to mint goblins en route. To me, all positive signs that they were delivering. And then for me, the TNL was a bit underwhelming. But based on the information that we got yesterday, it seems like they have a few more things in store for the rest of this month. And so for me personally, it will largely depend on how they deliver with these next steps, and kind of doing what everybody's echoing of, if it's going to be delayed or things aren't going to happen, then take a proactive approach and don't wait till the last day when everybody's fudding saying, you said this by this date, why isn't it here? Just let us
Although to be
know.
fair, I think that's the only thing that's gotten an announcement before the actual date passed. So that was actually improvement.
That brings me to the next point of the AMA that, I was at, because we've been going through the points, which is Aaron said that we can expect at least one root challenge per month, and a possibility of multiple root challenges per month. And in the absence, we're not expecting a metaverse type of application world game, where you can interact in a 3D space with a character soon. But what we can expect soon is to have these root challenges where we have to complete challenges in order to earn.
Yeah, that's stuff.
Typo, did you mean to unmute?
No, I didn't. Sorry.
Well, it was great hearing from your child anyway. So that's something that we can expect, is that a live world where, you can roam around and do things is still far away. But in the meantime, there will be monthly root challenges. And yeah.
And did I get mistaken that I thought there would be at least one more root challenge this month, and then the ability to be able to stake root? by the end of this month as well?
The root challenges that I think have been discussed as ones that will follow the completion of the current root challenge that ends on May 9th will be, and that might be New Zealand time, will be the bridging of the boxers from the next Legends collection. I don't know that it will happen immediately after. I don't know that it will happen this month, but I think a lot of people might expect that it would happen this month based on how that conversation went, but I don't think it was said explicitly. And another challenge, there was like paintings associated with portals made by thingies. That is something that is expected to happen at some point. And then any other challenge beyond that, I think, would be something that we'll find out about later.
Didn't we see something about Red Packet Challenge this month? Like, I thought I saw that maybe today from Aaron.
Oh, yeah. Red Packet Challenge as well. But he said that was reimagined. In other words, the announcement that they had made about the Red Packets, it seemed like it was kind of like you earn some type of reward for owning assets, and it seems to be reimagined to like more of a activity-based concept.
Yeah, I assume that will be pretty light, but yes, I assume that was the same thing. They just had to change the mechanism to make it less airdroppy.
Well,
Yeah.
they talk about not needing to bridge your assets like the FLUFs and party bears. It is becoming less of a have to, because the way that Futureverse works is it integrates with your MetaMask, so it shows all your assets, whatever chain they may be on. So it's just interesting when he said that, people won't have to take on, these unnecessary risks if they don't want to. So I just thought it was interesting.
We did cover that topic in the first hour of the show. Yeah. So that was one of the items that was brought up in the AMA that I thought was pertinent to share. And another topic that was talked about was a question was posed about the Sens coin 1-to-1 redemption, and he refused to comment on that at all. So I wanted to note that. And then I guess the marketplace and the DEX are being worked on with partners. So some type of outside contracting. I don't know if they're partners that are famous that you might have heard of or otherwise. I don't know if they're associated with Ripple or associated with any other potential partner. So we really don't have much to go on there. And then the last point that I wanted to make is in regard to, we were promised and we were expecting, I don't know if promise is the right word, but they told us to expect that they would complete the root or the Third Kingdom white paper and release it to us by the end of April. And then instead of doing that, they announced, well, it wasn't really an announcement, more of was like a tweet or a statement that they have signed an agreement with a company that requires them to change a whole lot of approaches and information on the white paper, so that not only do they not drop it in April, but there's no longer an expected time frame to be able to see the Third Kingdom white paper at all. So we no longer know when to expect it, and we were told that there will be a significant amount of rework done to it, and just given the kind of like, trust us, you want this will be good for everyone So I don't know what to think about that. And I'm sure everyone will have a different opinion on that as well. But that is something that I wanted to make sure to let people know. We're no longer expecting this in April. Of course, April's over and we didn't get it, but we're not expecting it anytime soon either, because there's a significant amount of rework that is going to be done.
I think the problem lies with the history of delays, and the red packet is one example. TNL being delayed, and just a bunch of things like that all caused us to take issue with this delay, even though it's probably a legitimate one. It's just the pile on of all these previous problems that just add salt to the wound. I don't necessarily see this delay as necessarily a problem, because they didn't communicate why, which is good to know, but we don't really know too much on who the partner is. But it's just the salt in the wound with the previous delays that I think has caused this one to be more of an issue. This is my take.
The way I've been summarizing it recently is the Futureverse is one of the biggest Web3 companies in terms of number of employees, the ambition of the types of products and services that they're building, the vision itself, and how different it is and how much it stands out, and the amount of capabilities that they've shown that they have. And the issue that keeps coming up is they have, or in some cases have not, done things over and over and over again that have caused people, and would cause a reasonable third party with only access to public information, to distrust them, or to feel like, yes, it's the biggest company or one of the biggest companies in the space with some of the most impressive capabilities, but let me point to all the times where they have let people down, where they have not communicated properly, where they have not thought of their community first, or any number of grievances that they might have. So, I mean, the team, they have themselves to blame for putting themselves in situations where they made people feel that way. And, anybody that does feel disappointed in some of the various things that, are things that a reasonable person might feel disappointed in, you have to respect that. And anyone that wants to talk about that, or talk about the other side, or talk about any other opinions, is welcome on the show to discuss.
Max, what do you think about the 3D castle versus the Google's AI?
Yeah.
That would look pretty neat.
I'm going to be honest, I don't really know what you're talking about. Did I miss something?
I was just in Discord.
Yeah, Aaron had put out like something that here's what we're working on, here's Google 3D, and then here's our version. And our version looked much better than the Google 3D. I want to say Atari made a tweet about it that you could probably find.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of really cool things are being built. It's just there's not a lot of, from like the public facing side, when you only have the information that's available to the public, you can see all the companies, big name companies and big name people that are doing business with the Futureverse. And you can see all of the employees that feel, proud to work there and are, seem happy to be in the position they are, working on the things that they're doing. But there's a lot of information that really just isn't publicly available. So it really goes back to the concept of trust that we've discussed.
To the top there.
Thank you, Somnia. And in the absence of that information that we know we're not going to get, a lot of it comes down to trust, and which is why every single person will have different opinions and will fill in the blanks that are left by communication that will not be made and cannot be made for a host of reasons. And that's one of the things that we like to discuss on the show, because the more opinions we can get, the bigger picture we can paint to our listeners. I'm adding a couple more speakers, and then we will look to end the show in around 15 minutes or so, as we've been going for more than 90 minutes. So let's first hear from Kiwiana, and then we'll hear from Mometa. Kiwiana, can you hear me?
Helps if I come off mute, doesn't it?
That usually is a requirement.
G'day everyone, how you going? I hope you're having a good day. Thanks for everything you do. I haven't been up and chatted here for quite a while, but
Well, thanks for coming up.
You're welcome. I think yesterday's spaces for me, I had a lot of concerns going in to that session, and hadn't really been at all vocal other than chatting to a few friends the previous night around where my thoughts were at. And I guess we've learned through experience with this team that, there have been some misdeliverables, to be diplomatic. I think that's where most people's frustration is that there have been things that they have set out that would happen that hasn't happened of their own volition. They didn't need to tell us that things would happen and we would have been happier. So I guess that comes back down to the comms issue again. But the thing that I took away from yesterday, I had some concerns because the second version of the white paper didn't mention the specific time frame for the allocation of the rewards. That specific segment didn't actually have a timestamp on it, whereas the others did. So I think, for example, the validators had a 5-year period noted in there. So one of the questions that I had submitted was around that, whether it was going to be something like a 3 to 5 year claim for participants and holders of the assets to retrieve their asset or token allocation. So for me, just knowing that it's 2 years, that was a huge thing. I'm much happier about that, and it gives me a time frame to work from. We've got a significant chunk of assets that we're holding, and it gives us sort of the ability to make some financial decisions and forward plan around that. Obviously, that doesn't mean that there will be any value attached because this is highly speculative, but that was definitely helpful. And I think it's just an opportunity for us to all review and go, okay, we know that there are things that are coming because they've been strongly implied or hinted at, but we've learned not to expect them, perhaps. I don't want to sound really harsh because, they've built a lot more than I've ever built, but we've learned not to potentially expect what's being promised, but we do have a time frame to work around. So if you're prepared to do the challenges and stick around and enjoy the community like we all do and have done for the last 18 months or so, that's cool. But I guess I'm not really expecting a whole lot more concrete information other than that because of the securities issues and whatnot that have been specified. But I did want to really press the question yesterday around the Third Kingdom white paper, and I could have pushed harder, but didn't seem to be too much point other than I don't think we're going to get any kind of future date announcement for that. I just can't understand why, if they've been working with someone for 2 years that's come on board as a partner, why there wouldn't have been a Plan B white paper that would have included them when they said that the white paper was going to come out in April. So, I don't know, but I enjoy the community, I enjoy you guys, and I'm still learning a lot because this is an exciting sort of new wave of technology coming through, and that's something that I'm enjoying more than anything. So I'm still here and still engaged, but really just not expecting a whole lot else in terms of deliverables other than just waiting till the end of that 2-year period at this point. Still have a lot of faith in what's being delivered, but I don't have a lot of faith at this point of it being delivered when they say they will, if that makes sense, which sounds contrarian, but I think you all understand what I mean.
Yeah, I think so. Let's hear from Mo Meta.
Yeah, Kiwiana, I've really enjoyed our chats over the last few days, and your voice is one of reason, and your opinions are very much, like, they're valid. Everything you're saying for a lot of people who don't stand up and say it. So thank you for raising those questions yesterday. Unfortunately, anytime you have a question that's got a when built into it, it's really hard to figure out how you're going to, like, how am I going to phrase this question to try and not make it a when, but as I said, make Aaron look up to the right, go into a monologue and potentially start dropping the time frame, you know.
Can I just answer to that for a second? Sorry to rudely interrupt. And I didn't articulate myself well enough yesterday, but what I was really getting at was not so much when, but my question was, what should the community's expectation be? And so when he replied, I should have rounded that out with saying, so the community's expectation should be not to receive a date of when it will be ready, they will just be given it. You know, like, don't announce an announcement, just actually provide it. And then we'll stop asking, because I think that has set the chain of events that's happened historically up until this point, where because they've said things would happen by a certain date, people say, okay, well, we're at the end of the month, where is it? Whereas I would much prefer, personally, I can only speak for myself, if they just drop the stuff when it's done. Hey guys, here's the Third Kingdom white paper. It comes out of the blue and we're all stoked and we can get stuck into exploring that. Like, for me, that would be much healthier.
I really
kind of how like Yuga does it when they say, wait, what's their phrase? They say, there's a phrase that they say, and then something's ready. Anyway, it's kind of, I just botched that, but that's kind of what Yuga does. They don't announce things until they're ready, and then they announce it, and everyone gets excited.
I'm hoping with the roll-up and everyone in their new positions that the ecosystem calendar for the Futureverse will now be more tightly knit. So therefore they'll be able to see on that calendar who's delivering what when, how the different teams need to come together to achieve it. And if they're not able to achieve it, they'll know from that calendar that that's the announcement we made for the time frame. The community will know that on the 28th, that's when we said we'd have it done by. We're not going to have it done. It's the 25th. Let's not let it get past that date. And someone mentioned it earlier, I can't remember who it was, but if you're not going to make the timeline, announce something before the date. Otherwise it rolls over and everyone's like, hey, it was supposed to have happened and now we've got crickets. So that's another area where hopefully a good communications within the team now through that new structure will hopefully fine tune that a little bit more. And everything you said, Kiwan, is totally valid.
Cheers. I mean, we're all in this together, so I think it's helpful to have these chats from time to time and just sort of, you know, there's power in community. So
yeah, no, there's nothing wrong with wearing it. Yeah,
and from time to time, we mean every single week.
Yeah,
but we're here.
Yeah, Kiwi, I love wear your heart on your sleeve, because I mean we have a lot of passion. You know, this whole ecosystem we're in, it's not about ambition or even ego. It really is purely driven by passion. So that's why you have every right to be passionate about it. Something I wanted to bring up was calculating the Futureverse score opposed to completing challenges for rewards. So having that chat with Aaron yesterday regarding the social media side of how we would be rewarded, very thoughtful of the words like distribution is not going to come into the conversation at all. It is a reward. So when he's saying by participating on social media, you will be able to improve your Futureverse score. He's not saying you will be getting rewarded en route. He said you'll be improving your score, which will then be able to help for future challenges. And during those challenges, your score will be different for different people. So if the same people complete the same challenge, it doesn't necessarily mean they're both going to get 100 root. If you're someone who's participated a lot, has built up a really high score, as opposed to someone who doesn't move their assets over, who doesn't participate, holds a lot, but only does the challenges, then potentially the reward rate might be different. I just wonder what people's thoughts are about that. You know, what is the difference between achieving a high score from having a positive influence and participating, and how that affects the challenge rewards, as opposed to just this month, this is the challenge, do this, everyone gets the same amount. Any ideas, guys?
I think it's too early to do anything other than wildly speculate.
My view on it is if they make it too complicated, people will just stop paying attention, you know, until we get more, you know, I don't even want to use the word mainstream adoption because we're years and years away from that, but, you know, we are massively in an attention economy industry. And if it's too complicated, people just don't have the time, the capacity, or perhaps willingness over the things that they've already experienced in the eco to stick around if it becomes too hard. So I guess that would be my only concern around that. And then it just kind of weirdly feels like social credit.
Yeah, doesn't it? It's like social credit system.
Yeah.
I'm going to take the opposite approach and present the opposite side of that, which is there is a pretty large community of both content creators and people that follow these content creators, where the content provided is information on steps you can take to get free airdrops of tokens. And a lot of successful people that have been doing these practices have gotten a lot of airdrops of Arbitrum recently. They've gotten airdrops or free claims, or the ability to buy Sui, which is a blockchain that's launching soon, or Aptos in the past, and Optimism before that. So there, and Blur, and a number of other tokens for doing certain activities. And we see all these, in my timeline, I see all these threads about do this step, this step, this step, and in the future you might get a free airdrop. And it's always, you know, a non-guarantee, and the people that are coming up with this, it's not based off formulas that exist, but rather on formulas that they are speculating, or activities that they speculate might be rewarded in the future. And all this is done with some expense involved, but not a large amount of expense. So for example, one thing might be you have to buy a particular token, but the amount that you have to buy is extremely small. Other activities will require you to, you know, do transactions that have a gas fee or a transaction fee associated with them. But the concept is all these people, and there are thousands of people doing this, that chase these airdrops and have been successful recently, or the past several months, or even longer frame than that. And it's quite a popular thing that a lot of people participate, and it is a great way to get recognition and be thought of by more people in this blockchain industry. And making them overly complicated does not make them less popular.
I agree with you, Max, and you're dead right about that. I guess the key difference here for me is generally, though, when you're, you know, chasing a token drop, it's, you know, bridge this asset, you know, do whatever activity which requires a few clicks. It's not necessarily buy ecosystem assets and hold them for an indeterminate amount of time, because, you know, well, it's 2 years, but, you know, for me, we're lucky that
it's not going to be buying assets.
Yeah, and so you might have, let's say you've got a party bear, a fluff, and a thingy. You might not get root at every challenge, depending what the challenge is, and I'm totally guessing here. But you know what I mean? Like, it's not, it's going to be.
Yeah. So what you're describing is the conundrum between, you know, the value of the NFT assets versus the attempt to get a lot of people to use the root network, right? Is not necessarily lined up.
Correct, and also the time cost of money and effort. Because normally for a lot of those airdrops, you're doing, you know, you're grinding, doing various things, but it's not generally involving you putting up large cash amounts up front.
Right. It's not any cash amounts other than transaction fees. And like sometimes buying very small amounts of a fungible token that's very cheap.
My question yesterday was actually loaded as I was trying to get to a narrative where I could try and encourage the conversation around how we could possibly incentivize the content creators within our group. I mean, I'm not putting out any content, but there's a lot of guys who are. So I want to just try and start that dialogue around, because we can't sponsor them. They're not going to get paid by the Futureverse. They've made that really clear. But if we could at least start a discussion of how much value these guys add, and if there's a way to incorporate that into the score or the mechanic in some way so that we can keep them around. Because, I mean, they can't just keep doing it for free forever, or they're going to move on to other people who are going to pay them if they want to keep doing it. So I was just trying to start a conversation there, and I went a roundabout way of getting to it. That was all I was doing there.
And for anybody listening to it, Somnium and I have been hosting the show for over a year now. We're here every week with very few exceptions. Thank you for your consideration.
Can I just...
I'm trying to hook you up.
No, I know we talked about this briefly the other night, and we talked about how the company has said that they're not going to pay influencers, but I feel like a lot of the amazing content creators that are currently active in the Futureverse are people who have organically come through the community. They're not necessarily, well, no offense to any of the amazing content creators here, but most of them don't have a humongous, following already. We're not talking about paying Elio Trades or someone to shell a coin, or, what's he called, BitBoy, or whoever ludicrous person on YouTube people watch. These are people who have, got excited about what the Futureverse are building and are creating content. It takes hours to put some of these videos together. So I really would love to hear a proper explanation other than just a flat, we don't sponsor influencers, because I don't consider a lot of these people as influencers. They're content creators that are organically grown through participation in the community.
They are very much... Sorry, they're educators. They're educators. That's what they're doing. They're saving us time, because you can't keep up with all this stuff.
That's it, and they're getting picked up by other communities that are happy to pay them and recognise them for their effort. So to me, that's quite a confusing thing. I don't understand that rationale whatsoever, and to me, it's a disincentive for anyone else to actually start doing it. So, and that's not what we want ultimately. It's free, well, close to free. Like, it doesn't. What I would love to know is what would be considered, adequate to recognise the content creators in a fair and meaningful way to keep them motivated to continue doing it.
That is the tricky part right there. But before the Futureverse can come to the party, whenever you see like NFT Bro put out his weekly update, or Jerry or anyone else, just give them a retweet. That's all. That's something we can do for them all right now, just to give them that extra exposure.
A retweet, or whatever buttons you can click, right? That don't take much time at all to show that you like the content, even if it's a particular piece of content that you don't think is the best. Is probably, if you like their work in general, it's probably the right thing to do, is to hit that like button or retweet button or whatever, shows the public that they have some type of fanfare and support.
I'm gonna jump in one moment, Max, just with my Twitter voice on. Hi guys, if you all go down to the bottom right hand side of the page, you'll see there's a little speech bubble. Hit that bubble, then go in there, that'll bring you up to Down the Rabbit Hole. If you'd like to push the retweet button right now and give it a like, be really appreciated. Thanks guys.
Yeah, anyway, during the bear market that we're in right now, there is not nearly as much attention or as many fans or listeners as there was in the bull market, and certainly a lot of people that have created content for a variety of Web3 projects or just Web3 content in general have disappeared or have greatly reduced the amount of work that they do. And everyone that consumes that content, I don't know, it's very helpful. And the more people that consume it and, press a like button or a retweet button or whatever button is helpful, like a subscribe button, it is helpful during the period of time where all these things that we're doing are not popular. So we're going to continue running the show even if we don't get a lot of listeners, because we believe that one day there will be a lot of listeners, and we think we're building ourselves a reputation and a consistency that we're here at the same time every week, rain or shine, providing what we're doing. And then if there is a lot of listeners, or if a lot of people care about the Futureverse one day, I hope we would have garnered some type of, positive reputation for having stuck through during the period of time where it wasn't easy or there weren't a lot of listeners. So thank you to everyone that listens to our show and supports us. And we're going to keep doing what we're doing. And thanks for being our fans and supporting us, even when most are, not spending the time in Web3. The last thing I wanted to share is that Alex, the outgoing CEO of Non-Fungible Labs is being merged into the Futureverse and therefore will no longer exist as an entity. So there is going to be no suite of, executives there. So Alex from Non-Fungible Labs is now changing roles into a communication or a community facing role, where they have a pinned tweet where he has kind of explained that. And in addition to that, he's given people the ability to sign up for a 30-minute one-on-one conversation. He's also expressed that if a group of people want to share a 30-minute meeting, then that's available as well. And I encourage anyone that feels like that's something that they're interested in to click on the pinned tweet and fill out the calendly.com form to reserve your meeting to talk to Alex. And, a lot of people have expressed certain opinions that it might be beneficial to share that directly in a one-on-one conversation with Alex. There's a lot of ways that people choose to convey opinions or criticism or potentially constructive feedback. But I think in a one-on-one session with Alex is about as good of a way to get that across as is possible. It's certainly much better than talking. Number one, I do think it's very valuable to talk about it amongst each other in this setting, but I think it will also be valuable to discuss it one-on-one with Alex. So if anyone, is willing to do that, I highly recommend doing it. I myself have signed up for a 30-minute session, and I'm looking forward to it next week. So I want to ask if anyone has any closing thoughts. Somnium, do you have any closing thoughts, or does anyone else, before we end the space?
No, I'm good. Just appreciate everybody supporting us and being here, and just excited for the future.
All right, so I'll wrap up the space here. Again, we will only have a guest next week if there's some type of release that warrants a relevant guest. So if we get Buzzy reveal soon, then we might have a guest next week. But otherwise, we'll have a similar session to the one that we had this week and last week also, where it's just the opportunity for the community to talk to one another. So look forward to that next week. And the recording to this space will be available as soon as it ends. Were you planning to play outro music, or are we just gonna end it? So
No, I don't have any ready.
no problem. So my last thought is that we'll be back next week, probably without a guest, but we'll let you know via tweet if our plans for that change. And thanks so much for your support. Thanks to everyone that listened or is listening to the recording. Thanks to everyone that jumped on stage and participated.
Thanks very much for watching. If you enjoyed this content, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and maybe consider watching one of my other videos. Bunnies up!